I really only have a positive memory of it. It was kind of treated like, you know, a day off. The canteen would change to burger and chips, and you would have an assembly where they'd have the guitars and you'd be singing Taylor Swift with them. And I think we all just kind of treated it like a day off. And then it was as we got a bit older, when you were in sixth form, you kind of would take them around to different lessons, that I started to realise that it was all a bit strange. But still, I don't think I ever really truly realised what they were actually saying, because it was never said to me. So yeah, I think I did have positive memories of it.
Anwen, do you want to talk through some of the difficulties that we faced doing this? We spent 3-4 months working on it, so it did take us a while to get through things.
So there were quite a few hurdles. I'd say the first one was getting people to speak to us. I mean, Mark Fenn claims 12,000 people is, you know, that is a huge number. But actually getting people to speak to us was very difficult, because fear of, you know, repercussion, what was going to happen. Teachers are still teaching in those schools, and it's 22 schools across Bridgend. So it was really hard to find a teacher that has kind of left the system that would speak to us, or someone brave enough to talk up about it. So that was quite difficult, but we managed to find Kate Will and Dr. Rathkin. I think they're the ones that carry this story, and they explain their, experiences of it, not the positive kind that I had, but potentially the one that was, the most important, really. It was also really looking, another issue was, who do we kind of, not blame, but who should have been responsible? With a journalistic piece, you were always looking for who's the person that you need to ask the right questions to, who should we really be trying to speak to? And that was so difficult because nowhere really wanted to take any responsibility. So the council would say that it was just the schools. The schools, denied ever having a complaint. We reached out to inspectors, consortiums that help with education. Welsh government didn't even know about it. So yeah, it was very difficult to actually pinpoint, and that's something we still don't really know, is number one, is there anybody that checks this, or is it solely just down to individual schools and then individual head teachers? And then the second question is, should that be the case? Should head teachers be able to make that decision, or should there be checks for them, but also to protect them as well, to stop head teachers from allowing this to happen, not really realising what was really going on.
Where do you think next, Anwen? Where would you take the story next?
I think it would be who is actually responsible for this. I think we had that response from the church, thanks to when we were working with ITV. We got the large response from them, which they say that they were invited back by individual head teachers, and they were allowed to grow and grow and grow because head teachers were inviting them in. So I think it's definitely who's responsible for this, but also why weren't checks completed? I mean, we just Googling the church's name comes up with all of the things about homosexuality, those abortion marches. It was so easy that was the easy part, was finding that information. And I'm still baffled really as to why schools didn't just Google who they were inviting in for 10 years in 22 schools. So I think it really is who is responsible, but also looking for more people who have different recollections of it, because since the film's gone out, we've had comments on it with people saying, I was in Dr. Rathke's class, or I went to one of these events and I remember this. So there could be a whole host of other people who remember different things. But yeah, I think there is a lot that more can be done, yeah.
From your perspective, and you have permission to speak frankly, what lessons do you think we could learn as established broadcasters, if you like, from the way you told the story for TNM? Because we, as you remember, we had to do it in a very ITV way.
Yeah.
But these are the things I think we could learn for that.
I think when I came to ITV, and we used quite a lot of the footage from the documentary, but we changed the pieces to camera and the voiceover. And I think, with the news movement, everything is meant to be peer-to-peer. You talk to them like you're down, you're your friends and you're at the pub with them. So that was really hard when I was filming with the news movement, because lots of, doing my masters, we'd been taught how to present for telly or radio, and so it was a bit of adjustment moving to TNM, where I had to kind of learn to be myself again in front of the camera. And I think at ITV you still kind of have the more formal approach, which I understand, but I think that the way you're engaging people, and what I like to watch and what I like about the news movement, is that it is so peer-to-peer, and it doesn't feel like a script, really. It's meant to feel as though it's very horizontal journalism. And I still think there is a little bit of that at ITV, where it is quite scripted and trying to make sure that you hit every point, which I understand, but I think there's something quite nice about having almost like you're talking to a friend. But then with ITV, there was also benefits. We had, just having that platform allowed us to do quite a lot more. We've got the Welsh Government response. We got the response from Mark Fenn, which we'd been trying to get for about a month. So there's pros and cons to, working for a smaller startup, but then also an established national media company, yeah. The way the story evolved it was just me remembering this church that would come to my school, and then speaking to people, I realised, okay, that doesn't happen at everyone's school. Maybe that there's something a bit interesting there. And then it was only really when we actually did the interviews with Kate, Will and Dr. Rathke, did I kind of see where the story was going. I mean, we had an idea of what they would say, but we didn't know initially that Will had complained. And then that was a major point of our story, was that he'd complained and they'd come back the next year. So you really do have to be quite open to where we take the story. And that paid off, because we had 2 people remembering being told they'd never come back, and then they did. And I think that's when we could really start to question the schools, and that kind of shaped it. So you have got to stay very open to what you're going to find out. And we also had to stay open for when we had Mark Fenn's response, who was the pastor, because we'd got in our mind that he wasn't going to reply to us. That was fine. And then 2 days before, we got a lengthy response with, their reasoning behind it and them coming back. So things had to change. We had to be open. But I think that's what actually, you've got to stay accurate to the story. So we had to change things as they appeared to us.
Did you experience any hostility or warn of any hostility in your news gathering for the story?
We've not had as much anything, comments or anything that I thought we would, so it's, touch wood, it's all going okay. But from conversations with people in Bridgend, there's one school in particular that I know has sent out an email to all staff members saying, do not talk to one of the schools that involved in the 22. Not one of the ones, but one of the 22 that had the visitors in, has sent an email out saying, if you're approached by a journalist, do not talk to them. You're not allowed to discuss any of this with them, and direct them to the head teacher. So it is clearly something that has reached the people involved. So we'll see if there is anything that comes out of that. But at the moment, it's okay. But I know that it's being spoken about, and people have got their backs up, because they don't want to be questioned about it, or they don't want their school to be on the list of the ones that allowed it.
I think if I was talking to the younger people in here, I would say, they need to get some experience, and they need to sort of, whatever that is, whether it's, a local, hyper-local site, anything like that, that they're getting that sense of just finding stories. Because I think, what Anwen did and proves with this is that those stories don't have to be the kind of main headlines that are, that are happening today. They're things that you can notice and pick up in your area that really do resonate outside that. So for me, if you want to be here, it's got about experience, but also asking questions and not you know, thinking, oh, this is just a nothing story. And very often that I find in the newsroom upstairs here is that people will come in with a story and they'll go, oh, it's nothing, it's a rubbishy thing, it doesn't. And actually, that's the one that people are going to be talking about. It may not be the big sort of news item of the day. You know, it may be something that's just like not necessarily as hard hitting as that, but it might be a softer story. And that's where you working your patch, getting to know the area, really being inquisitive and asking questions. And I think then, and having a bit of experience behind you, and I think, you know.
Thank you very much.